Welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Haas.
Hey everyone, it's Spencer here with nichepursuits.com, and thanks for joining me here on the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Today's actually going to be a really great podcast because we have a guest, and not just any guest, but Neil Patel from quicksprout.com. Now, if you have not heard of Neil, which chances are you probably have, he's very well known in the SEO and internet marketing space because he's worked with lots of large companies such as TechCrunch and Amazon.com and many other companies to help them grow their traffic, grow the reach of their audience. And so he originally built quite a business for himself, an internet marketing business, and has a long entrepreneurial background starting from when he was in high school, did lots of different little things. But more recently, he's had three big successes. He founded crazyegg.com with a partner, Hello Bar, and kissmetrics.com. And now kissmetrics.com is a company that he started with Heaton Shaw, and they didn't want to just bootstrap the entire business like they did their previous companies. They decided to go the VC route and get some funding to try and grow that company as quickly and as largely as possible. And so that's currently what Neil Patel is working on, and that business is doing very well. Neil shares some of those numbers with us here during the podcast. And of course, you can catch up with Neil on his blog over at quicksprout.com. But Perrin and I were really excited to interview Neil because we've heard a lot of his strategies that he shared either on other podcasts or through reading his blog posts or his guest posts that he's done. He writes content all over the place, but he shared a lot of really interesting tactics for content marketing, gaining natural links to your website, and just overall strategies for gaining traffic. And so this podcast dives deep into some of the content marketing strategies that Neil recommends for brand new website owners, and I tried to focus my questions on new websites in particular just because I know a lot of you in my audience have not built a blog yet or are in the process of just trying to grow your blog or grow your website and that traffic. And so I do think if you're willing to put in the time, effort, and energy, that the strategies that Neil shares here in this podcast really are the best way to grow that traffic. So with that, we're going to just dive right into the interview where Perrin and I go ahead and ask Neil some questions. So once again, just thank everybody for listening in and enjoy the interview. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Haas from nichepursuits.com. And of course, as always, I have my faithful co-host here with me, Perrin. Perrin, how you doing?
Pretty good. How's it going, everybody?
Awesome. We've got an awesome podcast that we're about to record here. In fact, we have a great guest who's agreed to come on to the Niche Pursuits Podcast with us. We have Neil Patel of quicksprout.com and several other ventures that we will discuss. So first of all, Neil, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really honored.
Absolutely. For most people listening, they've probably heard of Neil Patel either through, your blog, quicksprout.com, or the many other places that you're blogging online, and have probably heard of your ventures as well. You're very well known for Kissmetrics, one of your businesses, Crazy Egg, and Hello Bar. Can you give us a little bit of your background about why did you become an entrepreneur, and specifically an online entrepreneur?
Sure. I started when I was roughly 16 years old with my first online venture, and I did so because that's all I knew, in which I didn't know how to create a company other than on the internet, right? When you're 16 years old, you don't have a ton of cash, but it doesn't cost much money to put up a website. Especially if you're technical, you know how to use computers, you can eventually figure out how to do some HTML and pop something up.
Right.
I wanted to start out because I wanted to make money. And that's what I ended up doing, right? Because it's like, I just wanted to figure out how to become rich. Now, granted, later down in my career, I realized that that's not the only thing in life, and money isn't everything. But I started out due to the fact that I wanted to make money.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, and I know that there's a lot of things that have led up to Kissmetrics where you are now, and I know focusing a lot of your time and energy. Can you give us any idea of the type of financial success that you're currently having in your businesses? Either if you're willing to share revenue numbers for Kissmetrics or number of customers, anything that you're willing to share to give us an idea of the success that you're having.
Yeah, we don't really share any revenue numbers, but think of it this way, right? Our traffic's going through the roof. We have at least 600,000 visitors every single month on a bad one.
Yeah. And for people that don't know sort of the pricing for Kissmetrics, what's maybe an average price that customers are paying for the Kissmetrics service?
The average price that someone's paying, it really ranges. I don't know the ASP, but my guess is there's somewhere in the $1,000 per year range, right? Like between $2,000 and $3,000 all the way up to $10,000. It's somewhere in there, which is our average selling price. I would have to double check, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I mean, that can give people an idea of certainly the large amount of traffic that's going to your website. It's a higher end product, and so people are paying good money for it because it is a great service. So to say the least, Kissmetrics is doing quite well. And I know that you've recently had some funding. Can you give us an idea of what the business structure is there? Did you start it on your own, and when did you get funding for that company?
Sure. Started with a co-founder, Ethan Shaw. We've done all our other businesses together. We got funding, I guess, like somewhere around 5-6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we raised quite a bit of money since then. I don't know the exact amount off the top of my head, but it's more than $10 million in total.
Yep.
But yeah, we've been cranking along and just keep chopping away at it. So things have been going well.
Can I ask what prompted you to go after funding instead of growing it organically? Because I think that's a big step for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially if it's, their first online venture.
Well, we decided to go after funding because we wanted to grow faster, and we felt that this was a much bigger concept, and at the time we didn't have a ton of cash. Yeah. So funding was really an option to try to compete and go up to market and hire sales teams, and we knew that, with the lifetime value of our customer being really well, we knew that we're willing to lose money in the first few months or 6 months or whatever it may be, right? Mm-hmm. But to do that, you need venture capital. So that's why we decided to do that. Plus, we already had bootstrapped a few of our other companies, and we wanted to try a different approach.
People can look at the success that Kissmetrics has had and is currently having, and certainly a lot of us aspire to, run a company that's that large. But there's a lot of people listening to this podcast that are just starting out. They don't have any ideas, even perhaps, and certainly no current ventures that they're working on right now. What business do you advise somebody in that situation? They know that they want to start a business, probably some sort of online venture, but they don't have any ideas. What should they look to, and what type of venture should they start? Should they look at software, building websites? What's your recommendation?
They should end up going after whatever's their passion. You shouldn't create a software company because someone else is, or a social company or a mobile company. You should do what your passion is about. In addition to passion, you also need to be solving a problem. Mm-hmm. And the problem has to be big enough, right? You can't solve a problem for Eskimos, for example. It's too small of a market.
Right.
But you could solve a problem for mothers who have newborn babies, right? That's a huge market. Mm-hmm. You have to pick a market that you're passionate about, solve a problem that enough people are experiencing, make your solution easy enough and ideally affordable. From there, you should have a business that's doing well.
Yeah. Nope, great tips. So let's say that somebody does find their passion, they find that market that they are interested in, and just for example purposes, they're looking to build a new website. What is your recommended strategy right now for getting traffic to their website? Should they focus on SEO, paid traffic, social media? What are some good traffic strategies for them?
Yeah, everything from SEO to social media to content marketing, those are three that I really love. Mm-hmm. If you can create great content that people want to read about, people will end up sharing it, linking to it, you'll get more search traffic over time, a bigger audience, etc., right? Mm-hmm. It can work out quite well as long as you're trying to provide value and help others out before asking for anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for people that maybe, some people are great writers and they can write great content, but those are other people that maybe that's not their forte, they're not great writers. Should they focus on, should they still have this huge content marketing strategy trying to do everything, social media, SEO, content marketing, or should they pick just one strategy, maybe they're great on social media, for example. Would you still recommend kind of going after all traffic strategies or picking maybe what you're best at?
Well, when you're starting out, you don't have that much time, so you should pick what you're best at, expand from there, you have more resources or more time. If you have a lot of money and time, go after all of them at the beginning. Yep,
that makes sense. So you've written in the past on your blog, quicksprout.com, that content marketing is the new SEO. Can you give us some of your best content marketing tactics that people can apply to their own sites right now?
Sure. So with the content marketing, the best strategy that you can implement is, one, blog on a consistent basis. If you're going to pick weekly, pick weekly. If you're going to pick daily, pick daily. If you're going to pick monthly, pick monthly. Whatever you pick, stick with it. Mm-hmm. Two, write evergreen content. Content that can be read a year or two from now and it still is valuable and resourceful. Three, make your content very detailed. Give away the farm in essence, right? Mm-hmm. Tell them how to do whatever you're trying to teaching them step by step. If they get real value out of it, they're more likely to share it, tweet about it, and become more loyal to your brand. Four, don't expect your content to promote itself, right?
Right.
In content marketing, half of it's creating the content, the other half is marketing it. Go out there, find a list of 100 website owners who write on topics related to your space that aren't competitors. Email them, say, hey, XYZ, really love your content, big fan of you. Just want to let you know you inspired me to create my own content. Here's one of my first articles that I've written. Feel free to check it out if you like it. You can tweet about it. Don't ask them to link to it, just ask them for a tweet. And what you'll find out is at least 5% of the people that you email out will tweet it, and that'll help the content spread and get, some legs of its own.
That's really interesting. So is there a part of content marketing that does attract links? Because we are SEO guys, and when I think about content marketing, in my head, having not done a whole lot of it, one of the goals is to get links. So are the links coming naturally in that strategy because people are tweeting about it and some will happen to link to it? Or is there some other strategy that's attracting links? Or is it even important at all?
Yeah. So you're asking, are links important, correct?
Yeah, and if you are getting them from content marketing, where are they built into the process?
Well, the thing with links is the reason you don't want to ask for them is it's very hard to get people to link to you. But links are important. And if more people see your content, the probability that someone links to it increases. The more links you get, the higher you'll rank on Google, and then the longer you'll find that Google makes up a large portion of your traffic, probably in excess of 30 to 40%.
And so those are some great tips. I want to dive into, you mentioned, find 100 website owners. That number could be, 200 or whatever, that you want to reach out to specifically to email and ask to get a tweet. What types of people should you be reaching out to? Should you go for sort of the highest, possible value, media outreach, trying to get onto the Huffington Post and other things like that? Or when you're first starting out, do you need to just sort of stick within your peer group of, maybe bloggers just starting out as well?
Yeah, I would stick within your peer group, bloggers starting as well. You're much better to do that than if you're trying to get after the Huffington Post and stuff like that, because at the beginning you won't get too many results going after the big guys.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And then, hopefully in time you eventually can reach out to those bigger ones as you grow. Another thing sort of related to this, another content marketing strategy that you've talked about is infographics. And in fact, I think it was just on an article yesterday you published with the Search Engine Journal. You discussed how the traffic to Kissmetrics has decreased quite a bit, and then your plan to get that back. And that one of the big strategies was to use infographics. So again, somebody that's just starting out with a brand new site, maybe doesn't have any contacts, how can they apply that strategy of using infographics?
So if you're trying to use infographics, a few things you need to know, right? One, you have to find a good designer. You can usually find a good designer from Dribbble, Dribbble. There's a ton of infographic designers on there. It'll probably cost you $500 to $1,000 for a good design. If it doesn't look good, it's not going to spread. Two, information is everything. You need to either do research and come up with data for infographic, or you need to hire someone. So you have to know what's out there in your industry, who's sharing stats, to come up with some data for a visual piece of content, right? Because the whole purpose of an infographic is explain data-rich, hard-to-understand information in a beautiful, easy-to-understand visual. Once you create an infographic, you need to go out there and promote it, right? So if you have audience, you don't have an audience, you would get it on your site. And actually, to backtrack, the infographic shouldn't have more than 5 or 6 main points. If it has too many more than that, what you'll notice is it won't spread as far, because now your visual is becoming too complicated, too big, too in-depth. It needs to be simple and to the point. Once you have a finished infographic, you want to put it on your site. If you have a WordPress blog, there's a plugin called WP Embed Code Generator, and it allows you to create embed code for the infographic so people can embed it and link back to you. Once that's all set up, you want to go out there, tweet about it, have your friends do that, coworkers, colleagues. You even want to set up, like I mentioned, 100 sites in your space, or anyone who you use data from, and tell them, hey, I created an infographic with your data. Here's a link to it. Feel free to share it out. I also link back to you to, thank you for all the data you provided.
Yeah, no, those are some great tips for sure. Would you say that is one of the primary strategies then that you used for the Kissmetrics blog to grow it to where it is?
It is. So the main thing that we do for the Kissmetrics blog is, at this point, we just create good content, but when we started out, we used to do all those steps. Once you've been established for a while, you have an audience, right? You don't have to go through those motions.
Right. And, how long, for somebody just starting out, how long would you say it would take? I mean, on a consistent basis, somebody, let's say, is doing an infographic every other week or once a month. How long, in your experience, does it take for them to actually gain some traction where they're starting to actually build a good audience?
Yeah, it doesn't take you, like when you're doing all this kind of stuff for a single post or infographic, you'll notice if it does well within like a few days. But for a blog, as you're doing all this kind of stuff, you have to be consistent and do it for a regular basis. So if you're blogging weekly, it'll take you at least 6 months to build a solid audience.
Yep, that makes sense. So, Perrin, do you have any other specifically content marketing type questions and promotion?
Yeah. I really loved your advanced link building guide. It's something I refer to quite a bit, and I like the content marketing stuff that's on the Quicksprout blog. And I also remember when you were on Pat Flynn's podcast a long time ago. And out of all of that, one of my favorite tactics is that sort of 200 by 5 outreach where you find, 200 bloggers, 200 good Facebook accounts, 200 good Twitter accounts. Is that still viable? Are you still using tactics like that when you create a really great piece of content?
Yeah, it still works well, and you can end up doing that. The problem with it is I found that a lot of people don't do it because 250 is a big number. So I now tell people just do 100.
Yeah, and when you're doing that, I mean, what is the end goal? Just to spread a really great piece of content around as much as possible?
That's correct.
So these aren't like regular blog posts. These are special pieces that you want to attract a lot of attention. So something like your advanced link building guide, which is, thousands of words and 8 chapters, and like something like that is what you would use that strategy for?
That's correct.
Great.
And we are asking a lot of detailed questions, making sure we get it right, because we're actually building a newer site, a niche that we're not in currently, and we're applying some of these tactics that you've outlined previously and some of the things that we've just talked about. So we want to make sure we're getting it right as well. So we appreciate that. Now, you've worked on a lot of larger sites as well, like big sites like TechCrunch, helping them increase their traffic. How is content marketing and building links for a site like that different than building links for a smaller, newer niche site?
Yeah, the difference that I end up seeing is when you're a bigger site like a TechCrunch, you don't need to really build links. You're already big, established. All you do is you need to create content and fix the basics, like the on-page code and stuff like that. The work I did for the TechCrunches and the Gotham Medias of the world was actually easy. It's harder to do it for a brand new site and show them good traffic increases than it is for a big site.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so specifically for link building, we've talked about some of the things that we can do. Are there any other link building tactics that you recommend for a newer site outside of kind of the infographics and content marketing that we already discussed?
That's the main stuff that I would say. The thing with entrepreneurs, site owners, marketers, they try to do so much, and they don't try to do one thing really well. What ends up happening is nothing ends up succeeding with marketing.
Right. And so how do you recommend people avoid that problem?
Just focus on 1 or 2 tactics. Unless you have a big team and a lot of money, you should be focusing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, that is, it really is a huge point to make. Speaking from experience from myself as well, there's so many things that you can focus on and different areas you want to build traffic from, but if you're doing it yourself, like you said, you really need to pick one winning strategy or maybe 2 and just focus on those. So I definitely agree with that. Now there's another topic that is kind of hot in the smaller niche site arena, if you will. People are using expired domains and building out sort of their own blog network and linking to their money sites. They're called private blog networks, or PBNs for short, that a lot of people are using to try to get some solid links and get to the top of Google, essentially what it is. Are you familiar with PBNs, and what's your take on that?
I am not familiar with PBNs.
Okay. Yeah, essentially it's just that, say, for example, a site that used to be popular 10 years ago, that got lots of links from the CNNs and TechCrunches of the world, expires. And then now 10 years later, I buy that expired domain. All those links are still pointing to that domain. And so people then, put a blog on that site that used to be popular and link out to their other money sites to get some of those valuable links. It's sort of a big linking strategy that people use to try and rank their smaller niche sites.
Yeah, that doesn't work that well anymore. I used to do a lot of stuff back in the day. It's more gray, black. The problem is Google devalues a lot of links once the domain expires.
Yeah. So, nope, that's good to hear your take. I know listeners out there are sort of curious of what opinions are. So, obviously, from your perspective, you're certainly working on larger sites. You want to stick as white hat as possible, doing some of the outreach things that you mentioned. Any other sort of marketing tactics that you would be willing to share with somebody, again, that's probably just starting out, has a new blog?
I think those are the main ones. The other one that I would say is guest posts, right? I wrote an article on QuickSprout that talks about if you want a guest post, you need to get introduced to it. And I break down how to actually get traffic from, like, Entrepreneur, Huffington Post, etc., even if they don't know who you are, because if you can, like, now, pretty much the scheme of the article is, if you can communicate with other writers on those sites, just like say, hey, XYZ, read your post, it's great, here's some recommendations, or hey, I tweeted it out, like, get to know them. Mm-hmm. Eventually you can ask for an introduction to the editor, and when you get those introductions, you'll have the highest chance of actually being accepted as a contributor.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's actually something that Perrin and I are thinking a lot about doing, trying to make some connections with writers like that. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, it sounds like it's just really reaching out, being a real person, networking, and trying to make connections that will matter in the long run, right?
That's correct.
Awesome. No, that sounds good. I know that, at least I believe that you're spending most of your time on Kissmetrics and QuickSprout on your blog there. Do you have any other new projects or businesses that you're working on right now in addition to that?
That's mainly it. Just those. I try not to do too much more. I'm already spread thin on time.
Uh-huh. And, no, that sounds good. Perrin, any last questions or comments there from you?
Not really. Just to say thanks. Your blog is a great resource, and I think the more people, or the more you end up doing SEO as a professional, you kind of, accrue resources faster than you can read them, so you end up going back to the really great ones. And QuickSprout is certainly a really fantastic resource. So I think a lot of people would like to say thank you.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank you guys for reading the blog.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Perrin said, you're putting out great content. So we appreciate you coming on here onto the Niche Pursuits podcast and sharing with us some of the marketing tactics that are working well right now. Where is the best place that people can follow along with you, in addition to, of course, QuickSprout on your blog? Is there anywhere else?
That's mainly it. QuickSprout. They can also check out neilpatel.com.
Perfect. So neilpatel.com, quicksprout.com, and I'll also have links to everything else we talked about. But Neil, once again, thank you so much for coming on the Niche Pursuits podcast.
Thanks for having me, Seth.
All right. Thanks a lot.